Hey guys, tonight we're drifting back to a time when the whole world seemed to revolve around a chrome-rimmed counter and a cup of coffee that never ran dry. We're talking about the 1960s American diner, that beautiful, bustling corner of everyday life where everyone knew your name, your usual order, and probably your business too. Before fast food chains turned eating into a drive-through transaction, before restaurants became so polished they felt like museums, there were diners, warm, loud, imperfect places that smelled like bacon grease and possibility. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these quiet trips back through time, and thank you for being here. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you ever sat at one of these counters yourself. I'd love to know. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft white noise, and get comfortable, really comfortable, because tonight we're exploring a world that moved a little slower, tasted a little better, and felt a lot more human. Have you ever wondered what it really felt like to slide into a vinyl booth on a Saturday night? The jukebox humming in the corner, steam rising from a plate of meatloaf. What did the air smell like when the grill was working overtime and the coffee pot never stopped brewing? How did it feel to be a regular, to walk through those glass doors and have someone call out your name before you even sat down? What was it like when eating out wasn't about convenience or speed, but about community, ritual, and the strange comfort of being surrounded by strangers who somehow felt like neighbours? And more importantly, what happened to all of it? When did those chrome stools disappear? When did the counters go quiet? When did we stop gathering in places that felt like a second living room? Well, congratulations. It is 1962. The diner down the street is open. The neon sign is buzzing softly in the window, and someone just called your name from behind the counter. Let us go inside. The diner wakes up before the rest of the world does. By 5:30 in the morning, the grill is already hot, the coffee is already brewing, and the first wave of regulars is already pushing through the glass door, letting in a gust of cool morning air that smells faintly of dew and gasoline. The counterman nods without looking up, already reaching for the pot. He knows who drinks it black, who takes cream, who needs 2 sugars and a little conversation before they are ready to face the day. This is the rhythm of the diner at dawn. Quiet, efficient, familiar. A place where the morning begins not with an alarm clock but with the soft clink of a ceramic mug against a saucer. Outside, the street is still dark, the streetlights casting long yellow pools across the empty sidewalk. A delivery truck rumbles past, its headlights cutting through the pre-dawn haze. Inside the diner, the fluorescent lights buzz softly overhead, casting everything in a warm, slightly greenish glow that makes the chrome trim sparkle and the laminate counters gleam. The air is thick with the smell of coffee, that deep, bitter aroma that seems to wake you up just by breathing it in, and beneath it, the faint sizzle of butter hitting the griddle as the cook begins his day. The regulars take their usual spots without speaking. The man in the work boot slides onto the second stool from the left, his thermos already open, waiting to be filled. The woman in the nurse's uniform settles into the booth by the window, her purse tucked beside her, her eyes tired but alert. The cab driver leans against the counter near the register, one hand wrapped around his mug, the other tapping absently against the formica. They do not greet each other. They do not need to. They are bound by ritual, by routine, by the shared understanding that this is where the day begins every day without fail. The waitress moves between them with practiced grace, her shoes squeaking softly against the checkerboard linoleum. She refills mugs without asking, sets down plates without ceremony, and somehow remembers every detail. Who wants their eggs over easy? Who needs their bacon extra crisp? Who always forgets to order toast until it is too late? Her movements are fluid, automatic. The the choreography of someone who has done this 10,000 times and will do it 10,000 more. Through the window, the sky begins to lighten, shifting from black to deep blue to a pale, watery grey. The first hints of sunrise bleed across the horizon, soft and pink, and the world outside begins to stir. Cars appear on the street, their headlights still on. A man walks past with a newspaper tucked under his arm. A dog trots by, unleashed, unhurried, disappearing into the morning mist. But inside the diner, time moves differently. It is slower here, gentler. A pocket of warmth and light in a world that is still half asleep. The coffee keeps pouring, the eggs keep frying, the regulars keep coming. And for a little while longer, everything feels exactly as it should. The counter is the heart of the diner, a long stretch of formica or laminate that has absorbed more stories than any confessional booth. It runs the length of the room, anchored by chrome-trimmed stools that swivel with a gentle squeak. You slide onto one now, your coat still damp from the morning mist, and the stool rotates slightly beneath you, adjusting to your weight. The surface of the counter is cool and smooth, wiped down 100 times already today, and it gleams under the fluorescent lights overhead. This is where you sit if you're alone, if you want company without commitment, if you want to watch the cook work and the waitress move and the world unfold in real time, right in front of you. The stools are bolted to the floor, each one topped with a round vinyl cushion in red or turquoise or sometimes a faded brown that has seen better decades. The chrome base is scuffed from years of shoes kicking against it, and the vinyl is cracked in places, the foam peeking through like a secret trying to escape. But the stools are solid, dependable, the kind of thing built to last, and when you sit on one you feel grounded, anchored, part of something larger than yourself. The counter itself is a stage, and from your seat you have the best view in the house. Directly in front of you, just beyond the counter's edge, is the work zone, the narrow strip where the waitress sets down plates, pours coffee, tears checks from her pad, and somehow manages to keep track of 6 conversations at once. Behind that is the kitchen window, a rectangular opening framed in stainless steel, where the cook slides plates through with a soft clatter, calling out, "Order up!" in a voice that is equal parts efficiency and exhaustion. To your left, the counter curves slightly, following the wall, and you can see the other customers lined up like birds on a wire, each one lost in their own small world. The man reading the newspaper, the woman stirring her coffee absently, staring out the window, the teenager hunched over a plate of pancakes, drowning them in syrup with the focus of someone performing surgery. You're all separate, but you're also together, sharing the same space, breathing the same air, existing in the same moment. To your right, the counter ends at the register, where the waitress tallies checks and makes change from a drawer that jangles with coins. Beyond that is the pie case, glowing softly, and beyond that the booths, which feel like a different country entirely, a place for families, for couples, for groups of friends who need more room to spread out. But here, at the counter, you are part of the diner's pulse. You can hear the eggs crackling on the griddle, smell the toast browning, see the waitress's hands moving in a blur as she juggles plates and pots and silverware. You are close enough to the action to feel it, close enough to matter, and yet anonymous enough to disappear if you want to. It is the perfect balance. It is why people come back again and again, sliding onto these stools, resting their elbows on this counter, and letting the world slow down just long enough to catch their breath. She appears beside you before you even realise she's moved. Pen poised over her order pad, her apron pockets stuffed with receipts and a spare napkin, and probably a stick of gum. Her name is stitched onto her uniform, though you do not need to read it because everyone knows her name. She's been working this counter for 15 years, maybe 20, and she knows your face even if you have only been here twice. "What'll it be, hun?" she asks, her voice warm and slightly raspy from a lifetime of cigarettes and early mornings. You tell her, and she nods, already writing before you finish your sentence. She does not need to confirm it. She just knows. Her uniform is pale pink or sometimes mint green, a short-sleeved dress with a white collar and a zipper down the front. The fabric is worn soft from too many washes, and there is a faint stain near the hem that no amount of bleach has been able to lift. Her shoes are white, practical, the kind with thick rubber soles that nurses wear, and they squeak softly as she moves between the counter and the booths and the kitchen window. Her path efficient, her rhythm unbroken. She's in her 40s, maybe her 50s, with hair that is curled and sprayed into place every morning before her shift. Her lipstick is bright, a cheerful red that matches the vinyl stools, and her hands are strong, capable. The hands of someone who has spent decades carrying heavy plates and refilling endless cups of coffee. She does not wear a wedding ring, though no one knows why, and no one asks. It is not that kind of place. The diner is where you come to be known without being interrogated. She remembers everything. The man in the flannel shirt takes his eggs scrambled, his toast dark, his coffee with one cream. The woman with the red scarf orders the same breakfast every morning and leaves exactly 20 cents as a tip. No more, no less. The truck driver who stops in before dawn always orders the pancake special and asks for extra butter, which she brings without making him repeat himself. She knows these things the way other people know their own phone numbers, automatically, without thinking, because these customers are not just customers, they are her people. When she refills your coffee, she does not ask if you want more. She just pours, tilting the pot at the perfect angle so it does not splash, filling your cup almost to the brim but not quite, leaving just enough room for you to lift it without spilling. She does this while talking to the man 2 stools down, while calling an order back to the cook, while keeping one eye on the door to see who is coming in next. It is a kind of magic, the way she moves, the way she manages it all without ever seeming rushed or flustered or overwhelmed. And when you leave, she calls out, "See you tomorrow, hon," even though you have not told her you're coming back. She just knows. She always knows. The menu is laminated, slightly sticky, and has not changed in a decade. It sits propped between the napkin dispenser and the chrome sugar shaker, its pages yellowed at the edges, the specials written in marker that has faded from black to grey. You do not need to open it. You already know what it says. Eggs any style. Toast, white or wheat. Bacon, sausage or ham. Pancakes if you're feeling ambitious. A hamburger if it is past noon. Meatloaf if it is evening. The diner does not offer fusion cuisine or seasonal ingredients or locally sourced anything. It offers the same food it has always offered, prepared the same way it has always been prepared, and that is exactly why people keep coming back. The menu is divided into sections, each one printed in bold capital, letters that have been read so many times the ink is starting to wear thin. Breakfast, sandwiches, dinners, sides, desserts, beverages. There is no preamble, no flowery descriptions, no story about the chef's inspiration or the origin of the ingredients. Just the name of the dish and the price, listed in neat columns that somehow manage to be both practical and comforting. The prices are reasonable, almost shockingly so. 2 eggs, toast, and hash browns for 65 cents. A cheeseburger with fries for 85 cents. A slice of pie for 30 cents, or 50 cents if you want it with ice cream. These are prices that belong to a different era, a time before inflation and corporate profit margins and the idea that a meal out should cost as much as a tank of gas. Here, eating is not a luxury. It is a necessity, and the diner treats it that way. The specials are handwritten on a chalkboard behind the counter, though they rarely change. Meatloaf on Mondays, fried chicken on Wednesdays, fish on Fridays, because this is still a country where traditions matter, where the rhythms of the week are marked not just by the calendar, but by what is being served for dinner. The cook does not need to look at the board. He knows what day it is by muscle memory, by the rhythm of cracking eggs or breading cutlets or sliding a pan of meatloaf into the oven. There is comfort in this sameness, in knowing that the menu will never surprise you, never disappoint you, never try to be something it is not. In a world that is changing faster than anyone can keep up with, the diner menu is a constant, a fixed point, a reminder that some things do not need to evolve to be good. The eggs are still eggs, the coffee is still coffee, the toast is still toast, and that is enough. You close the menu without ordering anything from it, because you already know what you want. You have known since before you sat down. And the waitress, appearing at your elbow, already has her pen ready. The jukebox sits in the corner like a glowing shrine to another era, its curved glass front illuminated in soft blues and reds, its chrome trim catching the light. It is not playing right now, but it hums faintly, a low electrical buzz that blends into the background noise of the diner. Someone will drop a quarter in soon, probably the kid in the booth by the window, and the machine will whir to life, flipping through its carousel of 45s until it finds the right one. Then the music will start, crackling slightly through the speakers, filling the room with something sweet and nostalgic, something that makes the waitress smile, and the cook tap his spatula against the griddle in time with the beat. The jukebox is a Wurlitzer, though the brand does not matter as much as the fact that it is here, that it still works, that it still holds the same records it has held for years. The glass front is slightly dusty, smudged with fingerprints from people pressing their faces close to read the song titles, and the chrome trim is nicked in places, showing the steel underneath. But it is beautiful in the way old things are beautiful, not because it is perfect, but because it has survived. The selection inside is a time capsule. Patsy Cline, Elvis, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly. Songs that were new once, that played on car radios and high school dances and late-night drives, and now they live here, preserved in vinyl, waiting to be summoned. Each record is listed on a card with a number beside it, and you flip through them slowly, reading the titles, remembering where you were the first time you heard this one, or who you were with when that one played. Choosing a song is a small ritual, a moment of agency in a day that often feels out of your control. You slide the quarter into the slot, the coin clinking as it drops, and then you press the buttons, carefully, deliberately, feeling the satisfying click beneath your fingertip. The machine hums louder now, the gears inside, turning, the mechanical arm reaching for the record, lifting it gently, placing it on the turntable. There is a pause, a breath, and then the needle drops and the music begins. The sound is warm, analog, full of tiny imperfections that digital recordings will never capture. There is the faint crackle of dust on the vinyl, the slight wobble in the pitch as the turntable spins, the way the bass seems to vibrate through the floor. It is not perfect, but it is real, and in this moment, it transforms the diner from a place where people eat into a place where people feel. The waitress hums along as she pours coffee. The cook nods his head in time as he flips eggs. The customers scattered across the stools and booths do not sing, but they listen, and for 3 minutes the diner is not just a diner. It is a living room, a dance hall, a memory made solid. The booths line the walls, each one upholstered in red or turquoise vinyl that squeaks when you slide in. The one by the window is the best seat in the house, especially on a rainy afternoon when the glass fogs up and the world outside blurs into soft watery shapes. You settle into it now, the vinyl cool against the back of your legs, and immediately someone has left a folded newspaper on the table, still warm from someone else's hands. The window beside you frames the street outside, the cars passing slowly, the pedestrians hunched against the drizzle, the neon sign across the road flickering weakly in the grey light. This is the booth where you sit when you want to watch the world go by without being part of it. The table is formica, patterned in a swirl of cream and grey speckles that is supposed to look like marble, but does not quite succeed. It is slightly sticky, the residue of syrup or coffee or the damp cloth the waitress uses to wipe it down between customers. In the centre of the table sits a chrome napkin dispenser, a pair of salt and pepper shakers shaped like miniature rockets, and a glass sugar shaker with a metal spout that always pours more than you intend. The booth itself is small, intimate, designed for two people sitting across from each other, knees almost touching under the table, but is also large enough to feel private, insulated from the noise of the counter, the clatter of the kitchen, the conversations happening in the next booth over. The high backs of the seats create a kind of cocoon, and when you sit here, you can almost pretend you are alone, even though the diner is full. The vinyl is cracked in places, the foam beneath it yellow and brittle with age. Someone has carved initials into the backrest, neat little letters enclosed in a lopsided heart, and you trace them absently with your fingertip, wondering who they were, whether they are still together, whether they ever come back here to remember. The cushion beneath you sags slightly, worn down by decades of people sliding in and out, and it creaks when you shift your weight, a soft, familiar sound that is part of the diner's language. Outside the window, the rain picks up, drumming softly against the glass, and the world outside becomes a watercolour painting, all soft edges and blurred colours. A woman walks past under a red umbrella. A car splashes through a puddle, sending up a spray that catches the light. Across the street, the barbershop is closed, its striped pole still, its windows dark. Everything outside moves, flows, changes. But here, inside the booth by the window, you're still, grounded, safe. The waitress appears with a pot of coffee and a knowing smile. Usual, she asks, and you nod because of course it is the usual. It is always the usual. That is the point. And as she walks away, you settle deeper into the booth, your hands wrapped around the warm mug, your eyes on the rain-soaked street, and you let yourself breathe. Let yourself be. Let yourself exist in this small, perfect moment that belongs only to you. The cook works with his back to the room, his white t-shirt damp with sweat, his spatula moving in quick, precise strokes across the flat-top grill. He does not look at the tickets hanging above his head. He does not need to. The waitress calls out the orders, 2 over easy, bacon crisp, hash browns scattered, and he just nods, already cracking eggs with one hand, flipping bacon with the other, moving in a choreographed rhythm that never slows. The air around him shimmers with heat, thick with the smell of butter and onions and meat sizzling on steel. He has been doing this for 30 years. He could do it in his sleep. He probably does. His station is a narrow strip of efficiency, every tool within arm's reach, every surface wiped clean between orders. The griddle itself is a massive slab of blackened steel, seasoned from decades of use, its surface slick with oil and memory. To his left is the prep area, where eggs wait in a bowl, bread sits ready for the toaster, and bacon is stacked on wax paper in neat overlapping rows. To his right is the plating station, where finished dishes sit briefly under the heat lamps before the waitress swoops in to carry them away. He moves without wasted motion, his hands quick and sure. Crack, crack, crack. 3 eggs hit the griddle in quick succession, their whites spreading slightly before he corrals them with the edge of his spatula. He flips the bacon with a flick of his wrist, sending it airborne for just a moment before it lands perfectly, sizzling louder now, the fat rendering into the griddle. He drops 2 slices of bread into the toaster, presses the lever, and turns back to the eggs. checking their progress with a glance, timing everything in his head. There is no timer, no thermometer, no checklist. Just muscle memory and instinct. The accumulated knowledge of tens of thousands of eggs, hundreds of thousands of strips of bacon, more pancakes than any reasonable person should ever have to flip. He knows when the eggs are done by the way the edges curl. He knows when the bacon is crisp by the sound it makes. He knows when the hash browns are ready by the smell, that perfect moment when the potatoes go from pale to golden, from soft to crispy, from almost to done. Behind him, the diner hums with life, but he does not turn around. He does not need to see the customers to know they are there, to know they are hungry, to know they are waiting for the food he is making. His world is this griddle, this heat, this rhythm. Everything else is background noise. The waitress appears at the window, her voice cutting through the din. Scrambled wheat toast, sausage links. He nods, already reaching for the eggs. The tickets keep coming, hanging from the rail above his head like laundry on a line, and he works through them one by one, never rushing, never slowing, a metronome of breakfast perfection. His forehead is slick with sweat. His hands are stained with oil. His back aches from standing in the same spot for hours. But he does not complain. This is his job, his craft, his art. And when the plate slides through the window, the eggs golden, the bacon crisp, the toast perfectly browned, it is perfect. Every time. The coffee pot is always full. Always. No matter how many times the waitress circles the room, topping off mugs with a practiced flick of her wrist, there is always more. The coffee itself is strong, slightly bitter, the kind that tastes like it has been sitting on the burner for an hour too long, and yet somehow that is exactly what makes it perfect. You wrap your hands around the ceramic mug, feeling the heat seep into your palms, and take a slow sip. It burns slightly, but it grounds you, pulls you into the present moment, reminds you that this is real, this counter, this stool, this ordinary morning in an ordinary diner that somehow feels extraordinary. The coffee station sits at the end of the counter, a chrome and glass fortress of caffeine. 2 pots sit side by side on warming plates, their orange lights glowing softly, their handles wrapped in tape where the plastic has cracked from too much use. One pot holds regular, the other holds decaf, though no one ever orders decaf, so it sits there untouched. A courtesy that no one takes advantage of. Beside the pots is a tray of mismatched mugs, heavy ceramic things in white or tan, each one chipped slightly around the rim, each one holding about 10 ounces of liquid courage. The waitress knows your coffee preference before you do. She knows who drinks it black, who needs cream, who wants sugar, who asks for both but only uses one. She pours without asking, without pausing, the stream of coffee dark and steaming as it fills your mug almost to the top. She sets the pot back on the warmer and moves on, already pouring the next cup, already refilling the next mug, her rhythm unbroken, her efficiency almost hypnotic. The coffee tastes like mornings, like ritual, like the thing that separates night from day, sleep from waking, stillness from motion. It is not gourmet. It is not single origin or fair trade or artisanally roasted. It is just coffee, brewed strong, served hot, poured endlessly into mugs that have seen 1,000 other mornings just like this one. But that is what makes it perfect. It does not try to be anything other than what it is, and in that simplicity it becomes essential. You take another sip, slower this time, letting the bitterness roll across your tongue, letting the heat spread through your chest. Around you, the diner continues its morning ballet. The cook flips eggs, the waitress calls out orders, the regulars nurse their own mugs, staring into the dark liquid as if it holds answers to questions they have not yet asked. And the coffee keeps coming, pot after pot, cup after cup, an endless river of caffeine that fuels the day, the work, the world. By the time you finish your first cup, the waitress is already there, pot in hand, refilling without a word. You did not ask. You did not need to. She just knows. And as the second cup steams in front of you, you realize this is why people come here. Not for the food, though the food is good. Not for the ambience, though the ambience is comforting. They come for this, for the coffee that never stops, for the refills that never ask permission, for the quiet assurance that no matter what happens outside these doors, inside this diner, your cup will always be full. They arrive at the same time every day like clockwork. The man in the flannel shirt who always sits at the far end of the counter. The woman with the red scarf who orders the same breakfast every morning, scrambled eggs, wheat toast, no butter. The truck driver who pulls in at 6, eats fast, leaves $1 tip, and disappears before the sun is fully up. These are the regulars, the people who have woven the diner into the fabric of their daily lives, who cannot imagine starting the day without this ritual. The waitress greets them by name. The cook knows their orders before they say a word, and in this way the diner becomes more than a restaurant. It becomes a kind of home. The man in the flannel shirt is named Earl, though you have never heard anyone call him that. He is simply the man in the flannel shirt, a fixture as permanent as the counter itself. He arrives at 6:15 every morning, rain or shine, his work boots scuffed and dusty, his hands rough from decades of manual labour. He slides onto the same stool, the one at the far end where he can see the door, and he folds his newspaper into quarters so it fits on the counter beside his plate. He reads slowly, methodically, turning the pages with care, pausing occasionally to sip his coffee or stab a forkful of eggs. He does not talk much, but when he does, his voice is low and steady, the voice of someone who chooses his words carefully. The woman with the red scarf is younger, maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun and glasses that slide down her nose when she reads. She works at the hospital, a nurse on the early shift, and she stops here every morning before her rounds. Her routine is precise, almost ritualistic. She sits in the same booth, orders the same breakfast, drinks her coffee black, and reads a paperback novel while she eats, one hand holding the book, the other manoeuvring her fork. She never lingers. She's always gone by 7, her plate cleaned, her check paid, her scarf retied as she heads out the door. But while she's here, she's part of the diner's rhythm, a note in the melody that plays every morning. The truck driver is harder to pin down because he's not always the same person. But there is always a truck driver, someone passing through, someone who has driven through the night and needs eggs and coffee before getting back on the road. He sits at the counter, hunched over his plate, eating with the single-minded focus of someone who sees food as fuel, nothing more. He does not make conversation. He does not linger. He eats, he pays, he leaves, and then, the next day, another truck driver takes his place and the cycle continues. But there are others too. The elderly couple who share a booth every Sunday morning, holding hands across the table, their plates untouched while they talk. The schoolteacher who grades papers over breakfast, her red pen moving in quick, decisive strokes. The mechanic who stops in after the night shift, still wearing his coveralls, oil stains dark on his hands. They're all regulars, all part of the diner's extended family, all bound together by the simple act of showing up. And the diner in turn takes care of them. It knows their rhythms, their preferences, their quirks. It gives them a place to start the day, a moment of consistency in a world that is constantly changing. And in return they keep coming back, day after day, year after year, until they are no longer just customers. They are part of the story, part of the fabric, part of the beating heart of this small, humble place that refuses to change. The pie case sits on the counter near the register, a glass-fronted tower of rotating shelves that holds the day's offerings. Lemon meringue, its peaks golden and perfectly browned. Cherry, its filling dark and glossy beneath a lattice crust. Apple, dusted with cinnamon and sugar. Chocolate cream, topped with a swoosh of whipped cream that threatens to slide off the slice if you're not careful. You press your face close to the glass, surveying the options with the seriousness of someone making a life-altering decision. The waitress notices and smiles. "The usual?" she asks. You nod. She already has the pie server in her hand. The pie case is illuminated from within, a soft yellow light that makes every slice look like a work of art. A still life painted in sugar and butter and fruit. The shells rotate slowly, lazily, so you can see each pie from every angle, can admire the height of the meringue, the perfect crimping of the crust, the way the filling glistens under the light. It is a display case, yes, but it is also a promise, a guarantee that no matter how bad your day has been, there is still pie. The pies are made fresh every morning before the sun comes up, by someone whose name you have never learned, but whose work you have come to rely on. They arrive in the kitchen while the grill is still cold, while the coffee is still brewing, and they spend hours rolling dough, slicing apples, whipping cream, assembling these small miracles that will disappear by nightfall. Some mornings, if you arrive early enough, you can still smell them baking, that warm, sweet aroma of sugar caramelizing and butter browning, the scent that makes your mouth water before you have even sat down. Each pie has its own character, its own personality. The lemon meringue is bright and tart, a shock of citrus that wakes up your taste buds and makes you blink. The cherry is sweet and slightly jammy, the kind of pie your grandmother would have made if your grandmother had been the kind of person who made pie. The apple is classic, dependable, the pie you order when you want comfort, when you want something that tastes like autumn and cinnamon and home. The chocolate cream is decadent, rich, almost too sweet. The kind of pie you eat slowly, savouring every bite, because you know you will regret it if you rush. The waitress cuts your slice with the pie server, a triangular tool with a serrated edge that slides through the crust like butter. She lifts it carefully, balancing it on the server, and transfers it to a small plate, the kind with a scalloped edge that makes even a simple slice of pie look fancy. She sets it in front of you with a fork and a napkin, and for a moment you just look at it, admiring the layers, the colours, the way the filling peeks out from beneath the crust. The first bite is always the best. The crust is flaky, buttery, shattering into delicate shards under your fork. The filling is sweet and rich, coating your tongue, filling your mouth with flavour. The meringue, if it is lemon, is light and airy, dissolving almost instantly, leaving behind a faint taste of sugar and egg whites. You close your eyes, savouring it, and for a moment, the diner fades away. There is only the pie, this perfect, beautiful, fleeting thing that exists for this moment and this moment only. And when the plate is empty, when the last crumb has been chased around with your fork, the waitress appears again, smiling. "Same time tomorrow?" she asks. You nod. Because of course you will be back. How could you not? The pie case will still be here, glowing softly, holding its treasures, waiting for you to return. The blue plate special is written in chalk on a board behind the counter, the letters slightly smudged, the price so low it seems like a mistake. Today it is meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans and a roll, all for 95 cents. You order it because it is Friday, and because everyone else is ordering it, and because there is something comforting about eating the same meal as the stranger sitting 2 stools down. The plate arrives heavy and hot, the meatloaf thick and dense, the potatoes whipped into soft peaks, the green beans glistening with butter. It is not fancy, it is not innovative, but it is exactly what you need, exactly what everyone in this room needs. A meal that feels like someone cooked it because they cared. The Blue Plate Special changes daily, following a rhythm as predictable as the sunrise. Monday is always meatloaf, Tuesday is pot roast, Wednesday is fried chicken, Thursday is pork chops, Friday is fish, because even in the 1960s, traditions still hold weight, and people still observe them without questioning why. Saturday is roast beef, Sunday is ham. The cook does not need to check the calendar. His hands know what day it is by what they are preparing, by the muscle memory of shaping ground beef or breading chicken or peeling potatoes, until his fingers move on their own. The special is always served on an actual blue plate, a heavy ceramic dish with a faint speckled pattern around the rim. The kind of plate that has weight and substance, that feels serious in your hands. It is not disposable. It is not flimsy. It is a plate that demands respect, that insists you sit down and eat properly, with a fork and a knife and a napkin in your lap. The food is arranged simply, without artistry or pretension. The meatloaf sits in the centre, a thick slice with ketchup-glazed edges. The mashed potatoes form a generous mound beside it, a small crater in the top already filling with melted butter. The green beans are piled on the other side, limp and soft, the way green beans were meant to be before anyone decided vegetables should have texture. You cut into the meatloaf and it yields easily, the inside still steaming, releasing the smell of onions and breadcrumbs and something faintly sweet, maybe ketchup, maybe brown sugar, maybe just nostalgia. The first bite is dense and savoury, the kind of food that sticks to your ribs, that fills you not just physically but emotionally, that reminds you of church basements and family dinners and potlucks, where someone's aunt brought the same dish every time and everyone was grateful for it. The mashed potatoes are whipped smooth, no lumps, no skin, just pure potato fluffiness that dissolves on your tongue. They are not fancy. There is no cream, no roasted garlic, no truffle oil, just potatoes, butter, milk, and salt, prepared the way potatoes have been prepared for generations, and they are perfect because they do not try to be anything else. The green beans are soft, almost mushy, cooked long and slow with butter and maybe a little bacon fat, and they taste like every green bean you have ever eaten at every family gathering you have ever attended. They are not crisp. They are not bright green. They are pale and tender, and they slide off your fork easily, and that is exactly how they should be. The roll is warm, soft, slightly sweet, and when you tear it open, steam escapes in a soft puff. You butter it while it is still hot, watching the butter melt into the bread, soaking into the soft interior, and when you take a bite, it is pure comfort, pure simplicity, pure goodness. Around you, other diners are eating the same meal, their plates identical to yours, their forks moving in the same rhythm. There is something communal about it, something that connects you all, even though you are strangers, even though you will never speak. You're all eating the Blue Plate Special. You're all part of the same moment, the same tradition, the same small ritual that makes Fridays feel like Fridays. And when your plate is empty, when you have sopped up the last bit of gravy with the last piece of roll, you sit back full and satisfied and realise that this is what the Blue Plate Special is really about. Not the food, though the food is good, but the feeling, the sense of being fed, of being cared for, of being part of something larger than yourself, even if only for the length of a meal. They pile into the corner booth after school, 5 of them squeezed into a space meant for 4, their jackets piled on the seat beside them, their voices loud and overlapping. They pull their change on the table, counting out nickels and dimes, debating whether they have enough for fries and a shake to split. The waitress brings them water without asking, sets down a handful of straws, and pretends not to notice when one of them sneaks a sip of someone else's Coke. These kids will remember this booth for the rest of their lives. Decades from now, they will drive past this spot and tell their own children, "We used to sit right there. every day after school, and it will feel like the most important place in the world. They are loud in the way only teenagers can be loud, all energy and laughter and the kind of confidence that comes from not yet knowing how fragile the world is. Their backpacks are dumped on their floor, their textbooks forgotten, their homework untouched. For the next hour, maybe two, this booth is theirs and nothing else matters. Not the test they failed, not the argument they had with their parents, not the uncertainty of what comes next. Just this moment, this booth, this shared basket of fries. The coins on the table form a small glittering pile. Someone counts them out loud, their finger moving from nickel to dime to quarter, their lips moving silently as they calculate. They have $1.35, enough for one order of fries, one chocolate shake, and maybe, if they're lucky, a refill of Coke that the waitress will pretend not to notice. They debate strategy. Should they order now or wait and see if someone else has more money? Should they get onion rings instead? Are onion rings more expensive? No one is sure. They argue good-naturedly, their voices rising and falling, their hands gesturing wildly. The waitress returns, her order pad ready, her expression patient. She's seen this routine 1,000 times. She knows they will take forever to decide. She knows they will split everything 5 ways. She knows they will leave a 15-cent tip and feel proud of themselves for it. And she doesn't mind. Because she was young once too. She sat in a booth just like this one, counting change, splitting fries, believing that this was the best life would ever be. They finally order. 1 basket of fries, 1 chocolate shake with 5 straws, 1 Coke, because someone always needs a Coke. The waitress writes it down, smiles and walks away, and the kids go back to talking. Their conversation a chaotic mix of gossip and jokes and plans for the weekend. Someone mentions a party. Someone else rolls their eyes. A third person starts humming a song from the radio, and within seconds they are all humming it, half-remembered lyrics tumbling out in fragments. When the food arrives, they fall on it like wolves, grabbing fries from the basket, dipping them in ketchup, stealing from each other's plates even though they are all eating from the same basket. The chocolate shake sits in the centre of the table, 5 straws sticking out of it at odd angles, and they all lean in, slurping noisily, trying to get their share before someone else drinks it all. There is no politeness here, no manners, just the easy camaraderie of people who have known each other forever, who do not need to pretend, who can just be. They linger long after the fries are gone, long after the shake is empty, their voices quieter now, their laughter softer. The daylight outside fades, the streetlights flicker on, and still they sit, unwilling to leave, unwilling to let go of this moment. Because somewhere deep down they know this will not last. They know that high school will end, that they will scatter, that life will pull them in different directions. But for now, for this perfect fleeting hour, they are here, together, in the corner booth of a diner that will outlive them all. The smell of the diner is impossible to describe and impossible to forget. It is bacon grease and burnt coffee and onions caramelizing on the griddle. It is the faint sweetness of syrup soaked into the counter, the tang of vinegar from the pickle jar, the warm yeast of toast browning under the salamander. It is cigarette smoke curling up from the ashtray at the end of the counter, mingling with the steam rising from a bowl of soup. It is everything at once, layered and dense, a smell that clings to your clothes long after you leave, and yet it is not unpleasant. It is the smell of life, of people eating and talking and existing together in a space that makes no apologies for being exactly what it is. The smell hits you the moment you open the door, a wall of aroma so thick you can almost taste it. It is not subtle, it is not delicate, it is bold and unapologetic, announcing itself with the force of a brass band. Your stomach responds immediately, growling, even if you ate an hour ago, because your body recognizes this smell as something primal, something essential, something that speaks directly to the part of your brain that governs hunger and comfort and memory. The bacon grease is the foundation, the base note that everything else is built on. It sits heavy in the air, coating the back of your throat, clinging to the walls and the ceiling and the vinyl seats. It is the smell of fat rendered down to its essence, of pork cooked until it is crisp and salty and perfect, of a million breakfasts served over decades, each one leaving behind a molecule of itself. The griddle adds its own contribution, the smell of steel heated to the point where anything that touches it sizzles and smokes, where onions turn translucent and sweet, where burgers char at the edges, where hash browns crisp into golden lace. The coffee is everywhere, acrid and bitter, the smell of beans roasted dark and brewed strong, sitting on the burner until it thickens and intensifies. It mixes with the burnt smell that comes from the bottom of the pot, the part that has been there too long, that has caramelized into something almost solid. It is not a pleasant smell on its own, but combined with everything else, it becomes part of the symphony, a sharp note that cuts through the richness, that keeps the other smells from becoming too heavy. Then there are the smaller notes, the grace notes that you only notice if you pay attention. The sweetness of maple syrup, spilled and wiped up but never quite gone, absorbed into the wood grain of the booths and the cracks in the counter. The sourness of pickles, briny and sharp, escaping from the jar every time someone lifts the lid. The yeasty warmth of bread toasting, a smell that is comforting and homey, that makes you think of mornings and mothers and kitchens where you were loved. And underneath it all, woven through everything, is the smell of cigarettes. It is in the curtains, the upholstery, the very air, itself. It is not aggressive, not the sharp sting of a freshly lit cigarette, but the mellow, lingering smell of smoke that has settled, that has become part of the furniture. In another decade, this smell will be gone, scrubbed away by smoking bans and ventilation systems and a cultural shift that will make it unthinkable to light up in a restaurant. But for now, it is just part of the diner, as natural as the coffee or the bacon, another layer in the complex living aroma of this place. You breathe it in, this impossible, overwhelming, perfect smell, and something inside you relaxes. Because this is not a sterile place. This is not a place that tries to be something it is not. This is a place where people cook food and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes and live their lives, and the smell is proof of it, evidence of the messy, beautiful, chaotic humanity that fills these walls. By noon, the diner is packed. Every stool is occupied, every booth full, and a small crowd lingers near the door, waiting for a spot to open up. The noise level rises, a cacophony of silverware clattering, conversations overlapping, the jukebox playing something upbeat that no one is really listening to. The waitress moves faster now, her order pad flipping from page to page, her voice rising above the din as she calls out orders to the cook. 2 burgers, 1 rare, side of slaw. The cook does not acknowledge her. He is already moving, his hands a blur, his face set in concentration. This is the lunch rush, chaotic and loud and somehow still deeply efficient, a well-oiled machine powered by muscle memory and caffeine. The door opens and closes in a steady rhythm, each time bringing a gust of outside air that briefly cuts through the heat and the smell and the noise before being absorbed back into the chaos. People push in, their eyes scanning the room for an empty seat, their bodies tense with the urgency of a limited lunch break. Some are dressed in suits, crisp and formal, their ties loosened just slightly. Others wear work clothes, uniforms from the factory or the garage or the construction site, their hands still dirty, their faces still flushed from the morning's labour. Everyone is here for the same reason, to eat quickly, to eat cheaply, to fuel themselves for the second half of the day. The counter is the fastest option, so people gravitate toward it, hovering behind the occupied stools like vultures, waiting for someone to finish, to pay, to leave. The moment a stool opens up, someone slides onto it before it has even stopped spinning, before the waitress has wiped down the counter. There is no time for pleasantries during the lunch rush. You sit, you order, you eat, you leave. The turnover is ruthless, efficient, necessary. The waitress is everywhere at once, or at least it seems that way. She takes an order at the counter, delivers plates to a booth, refills coffee for a regular, tears a check for a businessman, and somehow manages to keep it all straight, in her head. Her order pad is a mess of scribbles, abbreviations that only she can decipher, shorthand that has evolved over years into its own language. BLT down, she yells toward the kitchen. Burger rare, Swiss, hold the onion, fries crisp, soup of the day, extra crackers. Her voice is hoarse from shouting, but she does not stop, does not slow, does not break her rhythm. The cook works in the same frenzied ballet, his spatula moving in quick, aggressive strokes, flipping burgers, pressing down on sandwiches, scraping the griddle clean between orders. Sweat drips from his forehead, darkening his t-shirt, but he does not wipe it away. There is no time. The tickets keep coming, hanging from the rail above his head, fluttering slightly in the heat rising from the grill. He works through them methodically, never looking up, never checking to see how many are left. He just cooks. The noise is overwhelming, a wall of sound that makes conversation difficult and thinking almost impossible. Plates clatter, silverware scrapes, the register dings, the jukebox plays. People shout to be heard over the person next to them. Someone drops a glass and it shatters, and for a moment everyone pauses looking toward the sound, before immediately returning to their meals, their conversations, their own small worlds. And yet, somehow, it works. Orders come out hot and correct. Checks are tallied accurately. No one leaves hungry. The chaos is not really chaos at all, but order disguised as chaos. A system so finely tuned that it looks effortless even though it is anything but. This is the lunch rush, the heart of the diner's day, the moment when it proves its worth, when it shows that it can handle anything, anyone, any amount of pressure, and still deliver exactly what people need. He sits in the booth near the back, his briefcase on the seat beside him, his tie loosened slightly, his eyes fixed on the newspaper folded in front of him. He orders the same thing every day, a club, sandwich and a cup of coffee, and he eats methodically, cutting the sandwich into precise triangles, chewing slowly, pausing occasionally to read another paragraph. He does not speak to anyone. He does not look up when the waitress refills his coffee. And yet there is something peaceful about his solitude, something dignified. He is a regular, just like everyone else, but his ritual is quieter, more private, a moment of stillness carved out of a busy day. His suit is grey, well tailored but not expensive. The kind of suit that says middle management, that says steady paycheck, that says responsibilities but not wealth. His shoes are polished, his shirt is pressed, his tie is conservative, navy with thin diagonal stripes. Everything about him is neat, controlled, deliberate. Even the way he eats is measured, each bite the same size, each movement economical, efficient. The briefcase beside him is brown leather, scuffed at the corners, the handle worn smooth from years of gripping. It sits closed, latched, a barrier between his work life and this brief interlude. He does not open it during lunch. He does not pull out papers or make notes or review contracts. Lunch is sacred, a boundary he refuses to cross. 30 minutes where the office does not exist, where the deadlines and the meetings and the expectations fade into the background. He reads the newspaper methodically, starting with the front page, moving through the national news, then the local section, then the business pages. He skips the sports. He always skips the sports. His reading is not casual, not the aimless browsing of someone with time to kill. He reads with focus, his eyes moving steadily across the columns, his finger occasionally tracing a line when he wants to reread something to make sure he understood it correctly. The waitress knows him, of course. She knows everyone. But she treats him differently than she treats the regulars at the counter, the ones who want conversation, who crave connection. She understands that he comes here for the opposite reason, for the ability to be alone in a public space, to be surrounded by people without having to engage with them. So she refills his coffee silently, sets down his check without comment, and lets him exist in his bubble of quiet solitude. He finishes his sandwich, wipes his mouth with a paper napkin, folds the newspaper back to its original creases, and places it on the table for the next person. He takes out his wallet, counts out exact change, and leaves it on top of the check, weighted down with the salt shaker so it does not blow away. He slides out of the booth, picks up his briefcase and walks toward the door, his posture straight, his pace measured. He does not say goodbye. He does not wave. He simply leaves, returning to whatever office or meeting or obligation fills his afternoons. But tomorrow he will be back. Same time, same booth, same sandwich. Because this is his ritual, his moment of peace, his small rebellion against a world that demands constant connection, constant engagement, constant performance. Here, in this diner, he can just be, anonymous and alone, and exactly where he wants to be. The smoke is everywhere, curling lazily above the counter, drifting across the booths, settling into the fabric of the curtains and the vinyl seats. Nearly everyone smokes here. The waitress lights one between orders, balancing it on the edge of the counter while she pours coffee. The cook takes a drag during a rare lull, exhaling into the vent hood above the grill. The customers smoke between bites, tapping ash into glass trays that are emptied and refilled a dozen times a day. It is the era of smoking indoors, of smoke as part of the atmosphere, of no one questioning whether it belongs. The air is thick with it, hazy, softening the edges of everything, giving the diner a dreamlike quality that will vanish entirely in another decade. The ashtrays are everywhere, squat glass dishes with grooves along the rim designed to hold a cigarette at rest, though most people just flick their ash into the centre, creating small grey mountains that grow throughout the meal. The ashtrays are practical, functional, utterly without decoration, and they sit on every table beside every place setting, as essential as the salt and pepper shakers, as expected as silverware. You light your own cigarette, striking the match against the rough strip on the matchbook, watching the flame flare bright and then settle into a steady burn. You touch it to the tip of your cigarette and inhale, feeling the smoke fill your lungs, harsh and familiar. The first drag is always the best, the nicotine hitting your bloodstream almost immediately, bringing with it a wave of calm, of focus, of something that feels almost like clarity. You exhale slowly, watching the smoke curl upward, joining the haze that hangs just below the ceiling, a horizontal cloud that never quite dissipates. The smoke changes the quality of the light. It diffuses the fluorescent glow, makes it softer, warmer, more forgiving. It blurs the hard edges of the chrome and the formica, gives everything a slightly gauzy, romantic quality, like looking at the world through a veil. It is not pretty exactly, but it is atmospheric, and in a strange way it makes the diner feel more intimate, more enclosed, a world unto itself separate from the bright, clean reality outside. The smell of cigarette smoke is woven into every surface. It is in the curtains, turning them from white to cream to yellow over the years. It is in the vinyl of the booths, absorbed into the foam beneath. It is in the walls, the ceiling, the very wood of the building. You can smell it on your clothes after you leave, a smell that will linger until you wash them, and even then faint traces will remain, a memory of where you have been. No one complains, no one asks you to put out your cigarette, no one waves their hand in front of their face or coughs, pointedly, or mentions second-hand smoke, because second-hand smoke is not yet a concept that has entered the public consciousness. Smoking is just something people do, as normal as drinking coffee or buttering toast. It is a social lubricant, a way to fill the awkward pauses in conversation, a prop that gives your hands something to do. The waitress carries her pack in her apron pocket, Pall Malls or Lucky Strikes or whatever brand is cheapest, and she lights up whenever there is a lull, whenever the orders stop coming for just a moment, whenever she has 30 seconds to herself. She leans against the counter, one hip cocked, her cigarette held between two fingers, and she inhales deeply, her eyes half closed, her face relaxing for the first time all day. Then someone calls her name, or the bell dings in the kitchen, and she stubs out the cigarette barely half smoked and goes back to work. The smoke is part of the diner's identity, part of what makes it feel lived in, used, real. It is not sterile here. It is not clean or pure or healthy. It is a place where people come to be human, with all the messiness and imperfection that entails, and the smoke, thick and ever-present, is proof of that humanity, a visible reminder that this is a place for people, not for perfection. The milkshake machine sits at the far end of the counter, a chrome beast with a long spindle and a metal cup that rattles when it is running. The waitress scoops vanilla ice cream into the cup, adds milk, a shot of chocolate syrup, and flips the switch. The machine roars to life, whirring loudly, shaking the counter slightly, blending everything into a thick, frothy shake. She pours it into a tall glass, the kind with ridges that make it easier to hold, and sets it in front of you with a straw and a long spoon. The first sip is cold and sweet and rich, coating your tongue, and you drink it slowly, savouring every bit, because a milkshake in a diner is not just a drink, it is an experience. The machine itself is a work of mechanical art, all gleaming chrome and smooth curves, designed in an era when appliances were meant to be beautiful as well as functional. It has a base that houses the motor, heavy and solid, and rising from it are 3 spindles, each one capable of mixing a shake independently. The metal cups that fit onto the spindles are dented and scratched from years of use, but they are polished to a shine every night, buffed until they gleam under the fluorescent lights. The process of making a milkshake is part theatre, part craft. The waitress does not measure anything. She does not consult a recipe or count scoops. She just knows, the way you know how to tie your shoes or ride a bike, the muscle memory so ingrained that her hands move on their own. 3 scoops of ice cream, vanilla unless you specify otherwise. A generous pour of whole milk straight from the glass bottle, and then the flavouring chocolate syrup squeezed in a thick ribbon or strawberry, bright pink and sweet, or sometimes malt powder, a tablespoon or 2, turning it into something richer, more complex. She fits the cup onto the spindle, positions it just right, and flips the switch. The machine growls, the motor straining slightly as the spindle begins to turn, slowly at first and then faster, whipping the ice cream and milk together, incorporating air, creating that perfect, thick, creamy texture that is somewhere between liquid and solid. The sound is loud, drowning out conversation for the few seconds it runs, a mechanical roar that announces to everyone in the diner that a milkshake is being made, that someone is about to have something special. When she turns off the machine, the sudden silence is almost startling. She lifts the cup from the spindle and pours the shake into a tall glass, the shake so thick it barely flows, clinging to the sides of the cup, requiring a rubber spatula to scrape out every last bit. The glass fills slowly, the shake mounding slightly, above the rim, and she sets it in front of you with a paper-wrapped straw and a long-handled spoon, the kind with a flat paddle at the end designed for digging into the bottom of the glass where the thickest, richest part settles. You unwrap the straw and push it through the shake, feeling the resistance, the thickness, and when you take your first sip you have to suck hard, your cheeks hollowing, your lips tight around the straw. The shake moves slowly up the straw, cold and dense, and when it hits your tongue, it is a revelation, sweet and creamy and intensely chocolatey, coating your mouth, numbing your teeth slightly with the cold. It is so thick you can barely taste it at first, your taste buds overwhelmed by the temperature, but then it begins to melt, to warm slightly, and the flavour blooms, rich and satisfying and exactly right. You eat it slowly, alternating between the straw and the spoon, savouring each mouthful because you know that in 10 minutes it will be gone, and the glass will be empty except for a thin film of melted shake clinging to the sides. But for now, for this perfect moment, you have a milkshake made by hand in a diner, and there is nothing better than that. By 11 at night, the diner has transformed. The families are gone, the businessmen have disappeared, and a different kind of crowd has filtered in. Cab drivers on break, night shift workers stopping in for eggs before heading home, teenagers who have nowhere else to go sitting in the corner booth, nursing a single cup of coffee for an hour. The jukebox plays something slower now, something bluesy, and the light seems softer, the noise quieter, the whole place settling into a gentle, sleepy rhythm. The waitress moves more slowly too, her shift nearly over, her feet aching. But she still smiles when you order, still refills your coffee without asking. The late-night diner has its own energy, quieter than the lunch rush, more intimate than the dinner crowd, tinged with a melancholy that comes from knowing that most of the world is asleep and you are not. The people here are the ones who do not fit into the daylight hours, who work when others sleep, who exist on the margins of normal life. They're united by their displacement, by the fact that they're all awake at an hour when they should not be, and this creates a strange bond, an unspoken understanding that passes between strangers who will never speak. The cab driver sits at the counter, still wearing his cap, his jacket slung over the back of the stool. His shift does not end for another 2 hours, but he needs food, needs coffee, needs a moment off his feet. He orders eggs over easy, toast, sausage, and he eats quickly, efficiently, shoveling food into his mouth between sips of coffee. His eyes are tired but alert, the eyes of someone who has learned to stay awake through sheer force of will. When he finishes, he leaves a tip, more generous than you would expect, and disappears back into the night, back to his cab, back to the endless circuit of streets and fairs and small talk. The night shift worker is a woman in scrubs, a nurse or maybe a factory worker, her uniform stained and wrinkled from hours of labour. She sits in a booth, her back to the wall, her eyes half closed, and she orders coffee and pie, comfort food for someone too tired to chew anything that requires effort. She eats slowly, mechanically, her fork moving from plate to mouth in a steady rhythm that suggests her mind is elsewhere, already home, already in bed, already asleep even though her body is still here. The teenagers huddle in the corner booth, their energy low, their voices quiet. They are not here because they are hungry. They are here because they do not want to go home, because home is complicated, because the diner is the only place open at this hour that will let them sit without judgment. They order 1 Coke, maybe 2, and they make it last, stirring the ice with their straws, talking in low murmurs, about things that matter desperately right now and will not matter at all in 5 years. The waitress does not rush them. She understands. She was young once too. The jukebox plays Patsy Cline, her voice achingly beautiful, filling the diner with a sadness that is not unpleasant, that feels almost comforting, like being wrapped in a blanket made of memory and regret. The song finishes, and there is silence for a moment before someone feeds another quarter into the machine and the music starts again, softer this time, slower, a lullaby for people who cannot sleep. The fluorescent lights seem dimmer now, though they have not actually changed. It is just that everything feels softer at this hour, more forgiving, less harsh. The chrome does not gleam as brightly. The formica does not reflect as much light. Even the waitress's movements are slower, gentler, as if she too is succumbing to the weight of the late hour, to the pull of sleep that waits just beyond the edges of this bright, warm space. And for a little while the diner becomes a refuge, a sanctuary, a place where the lost and the lonely and the displaced can gather without having to explain themselves, without having to be anything other than what they are. Night people, strangers, human beings looking for a warm place and a cup of coffee, and the reassurance that they are not alone. When you're ready to leave, the waitress tears a slip of paper from her pad and sets it face down on the counter beside your plate. The total is written in pencil, slightly smudged, the math done in her head. $1.35. You pull out 2 singles, leave them on the counter, and slide off the stool. She scoops up the bills, tucks them into her apron, and calls out, "Thanks, hun. See you tomorrow." And you know she means it, because tomorrow you will be back. You will slide onto the same stool, order the same breakfast, drink the same coffee, and it will feel just as good as it does right now. The check itself is a small thing, barely 3 inches tall, torn from a pad that has seen hundreds, maybe thousands of similar transactions. The paper is thin, almost translucent, and the carbon beneath it has created a faint duplicate on the sheet below. A ghost of your meal that will remain in the waitress's records until the pad is filled and filed away in a cardboard box somewhere in the back office. The handwriting is quick, efficient, almost illegible to anyone who is not used to reading it. The items are abbreviated shorthand that has evolved over years into its own language. Eggs, toast, bacon becomes ETB. Coffee is just C, with a small mark beside it indicating refills, each one a tiny slash that adds up by the end of the meal. The numbers are scrawled beside each item, and at the bottom a line is drawn, firm and straight, and beneath it the total, calculated in seconds, without a calculator, without even a pause for thought. The waitress does not itemize the tax separately. She does not break down the cost of each individual thing. The total is the total, and it includes everything: the food, the coffee, the invisible labour of cooking and serving and cleaning up after you. It is remarkably cheap, almost absurdly so. A full meal for less than the price of a movie ticket, less than a pack of cigarettes, less than a tank of gas. And yet it feels fair, honest, the kind of transaction where both parties get what they need without anyone feeling cheated. You look at the check one more time before leaving your money. $1.35. You put down 2 singles because you're not the kind of person who asks for change. Not when the meal was good and the service was fast and the waitress called you hon in a way that made you feel seen. The 65 cents left over is her tip, almost 50%. And while it is not much in absolute terms, it is generous by the standards of the day, and she will appreciate it. Will tuck it into her apron pocket with the other bills and coins that accumulate throughout her shift. She scoops up the money without counting it, does not even look at it, just feels the weight of the bills and knows instinctively what you have left. She makes change in her head, but does not offer it, understanding that you have left it for her. "Thanks, hun," she calls out as you stand, as you shrug on your jacket, as you push open the door. "See you tomorrow." And the strange thing is, it is not just a pleasantry, it is the truth. You will be back tomorrow, same time, same seat, same order. because this is your routine, your ritual, your small daily pilgrimage to a place that knows you, that expects you, that has a stool with your name on it, even if the name is never spoken. The diner is not just a restaurant. It is a habit, a home, a place where you belong. You step out into the night, the door closing behind you with a soft jingle of the bell, and you can still hear her voice in your head, warm and raspy and utterly genuine. See you tomorrow, hun, and you smile because you will. But something is shifting. You can feel it even if you cannot name it yet. The diner is still here, still full, still humming with life, but the world outside is changing. Fast food chains are opening on every corner, bright and shiny and impossibly fast. Highways are bypassing the small towns where diners used to thrive, pulling traffic away, pulling customers away. Families are eating at home more, frozen dinners heating in the oven, TV trays set up in the living room. The rituals are loosening, the routines are breaking, and the diner, this beautiful, stubborn, unchanging place, is beginning to feel like an artifact from another time. The first sign is subtle, almost imperceptible. The lunch crowd is still strong, still packing the stools and booths, but there are gaps now, empty seats that used to be filled, regulars who used to come every day but now only come twice a week, once a week, not at all. The waitress notices. The cook notices. But they do not talk about it. Not yet, because acknowledging it feels like admitting defeat, like accepting that something precious is slipping away. The new fast food restaurant opens across town, all gleaming white and red, with a parking lot that seems enormous compared to the diner's small gravel strip. It has a drive-through window, a concept so novel that people go there just to experience it, to order food without leaving their cars, to receive it in a paper bag through a window, to eat it while driving away. It is fast, efficient, modern, everything the diner is not, and people are drawn to it, not because the food is better, because it is not, but because it is new, because it is convenient, because it fits into lives that are moving faster, getting busier, leaving less room for the slow ritual of sitting at a counter and waiting for your eggs to be cooked to order. The highway bypass opens the same year, a ribbon of smooth asphalt that curves around the town instead of through it, allowing travellers to skip Main Street entirely, to stay on the interstate with its predictable chain restaurants clustered at every exit. The diner used to rely on that traffic, the salesmen and truckers and families on road trips who would stop for a meal, stretch their legs, leave a tip. Now they never see the diner at all. It sits on Main Street, its neon sign glowing faithfully every night, invisible to the cars that speed past on the new highway, unaware that it even exists. At home, things are changing too. Frozen dinners are becoming popular, complete meals in aluminum trays that heat in the oven and require no preparation, no cooking, no skill. Swanson introduces the TV dinner, and suddenly families are eating in front of the television instead of at the dinner table, and they certainly are not going out to eat as often. Why drive to the diner when you can heat up fried chicken and mashed potatoes and eat it while watching Bonanza? It is easier, it is cheaper, it is the future. The diner's prices stay the same because raising them feels like betraying the people who have kept it alive all these years. But costs are rising. The minimum wage is going up. The price of eggs, of bacon, of coffee, all of it is climbing, and the margins are getting thinner, tighter, harder to sustain. The owner, who has run this place for 20 years, starts to look tired, worn down by the math that no longer adds up, by the future that no longer looks certain. The jukebox breaks down and stays broken for a month before anyone bothers to fix it. One of the booths loses its cushion and nobody reupholsters it right away. Small signs of decay, tiny surrenders, the slow erosion of a place that used to feel permanent but now feels fragile, vulnerable, mortal. And yet, the regulars keep coming. The man in the flannel shirt still sits at the end of the counter. The woman with the red scarf still orders her scrambled eggs. The teenagers still pile into the corner booth after school. They're loyal, faithful, determined to keep this place alive through sheer force of will. But even they can feel it, the sense that they are holding onto something that is slipping through their fingers, that no amount of loyalty can stop what is coming. The diner is not dying yet, but it is beginning to fade, to soften at the edges, to lose the vibrancy that once made it the center of everything. And everyone who loves it can feel the change coming, inevitable and unstoppable, like a season turning, like night falling, like the end of something beautiful that cannot last forever. The chains arrive with bright colours and clean lines and promises of speed. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. They build their restaurants on the outskirts of town near the new shopping centres, and they move fast, impossibly fast, taking your order and handing you food in under 5 minutes. There are no waitresses here, no counters, no stools, just a line and a register and a paper bag. The food tastes different, processed, uniform, the same in every location across the country. And yet people flock to these places, drawn by the convenience, the novelty, the sense that this is the future. The diner, with its slow service and its handwritten checks, begins to feel old-fashioned, quaint, a relic of a slower world that no one has time for anymore. The buildings themselves are designed to be noticed, to stand out, to catch your eye from the highway. Golden arches that glow at night, orange and brown colour schemes that announce themselves boldly against the sky. Large, brightly lit signs with numbers that climb higher every week, boasting about how many millions of hamburgers have been served, as if quantity is the same thing as quality. The architecture is clean, modern, stripped of ornament, designed not for beauty but for efficiency, for replication, for the ability to build the same building in 1,000 different towns and have it look exactly the same. Inside, everything is different from the diner. The floors are tile, easy to clean, designed to withstand the traffic of hundreds of customers a day. The tables are bolted down, the chairs are plastic, and there is no booth where you can settle in and stay for an hour. You're not meant to linger here. You're meant to eat quickly and leave, to make room for the next person in line. The lighting is bright, fluorescent, unforgiving, making everything look slightly harsh, slightly clinical, like a hospital cafeteria designed by someone who had never actually enjoyed a meal. The menu is displayed on a backlit board above the counter, each item photographed and sanitized, the colours oversaturated, the food looking almost too perfect, too uniform, too unlike anything that has ever existed in nature. You order by number 1, number 3, number 5. The person behind the register does not know your name, does not ask how you are, does not care whether you want your eggs over easy or scrambled. They just punch buttons, take your money, hand you a receipt with a number on it, and move on to the next customer before you have even stepped away. The food arrives in paper, not on plates. Burgers wrapped in tissue and foil, fries in a red cardboard sleeve, drinks in wax-coated cups with plastic lids. Everything is disposable, designed to be consumed and discarded, to leave no trace behind. You eat it quickly, because there is nothing about this experience that invites you to slow down, to savour, to enjoy. The burger is fine, adequate, exactly like the burger you had last week and exactly like the burger you will have next week. It tastes like efficiency, like predictability, like a world that has decided that consistency is more important than character. And people love it. They love the speed, the convenience, the fact that they can get the same meal in Los Angeles or New York or a tiny town in Kansas. They love that they do not have to wait, not have to tip, do not have to make small talk with a waitress who might ask about their day. They love that it is cheap, cheaper even than the diner, because the chains have economies of scale, supply chains, purchasing power that a single independent diner could never match. The diner owners watch this happening and they do not know how to compete. They cannot move faster, they cannot standardize their food, they cannot replicate themselves across the country. All they have is what they have always had: good food, familiar faces, a place where people know your name. And for a while, that is enough. For a while, the regulars keep coming, loyal to the end. But the numbers do not lie. The lunch rush is smaller, the dinner crowd is thinner, the weekend breakfast is not what it used to be. And slowly, inevitably, the diner begins to lose ground to the bright, shiny, soulless places that promise everything except the one thing the diner has always offered: a sense of home. The new highway opens, cutting through the farmland on the edge of town, bypassing Main Street entirely. It is wider, faster, more efficient, designed to move people quickly from city to city without stopping. And with it, the traffic disappears. The cars that used to pass through town, the travellers who used to stop at the diner for breakfast or lunch or a cup of coffee, they never come anymore. They stay on the highway, exiting only at the big chain restaurants clustered near the off-ramps. The diner sits on Main Street, its neon sign still glowing, its door still open, but the booths are emptier now, the counter quieter, the register ringing less often. The highway is a marvel of modern engineering, smooth and straight, cutting through the landscape with the confidence of something that knows exactly where it is going. It rises on concrete pillars over valleys, tunnels through hills, sweeps in gentle curves around anything that might slow it down. There are no traffic lights, no intersections, no reasons to stop. Just mile after mile of asphalt, broken only by exit ramps that lead to gas stations and rest stops and chain restaurants that all look the same. The old road, the one that ran through town, through Main Street, past the diner, is still there. But it is quiet now, almost forgotten, demoted from highway to county road to something that only locals use. The businesses that lined it, the diner, the motel, the gas station, the souvenir shop, they were all built on the assumption that the road would always bring people through, that travellers would always need food and gas and a place to rest. But the highway has made that assumption obsolete, has rendered the entire town invisible to anyone passing through. The diner used to rely on that traffic more than anyone realised. The salesman driving from one territory to another, stopping for coffee and a piece of pie. The families on road trips, pulling over for lunch, the kids piling into a booth there, parents grateful for a chance to stretch their legs. The truckers who knew every diner on every route, who had their favourites, who would go 5 miles out of their way for a good breakfast. All of that traffic is gone now, diverted to the highway, siphoned away to the chain restaurants that advertise themselves on billboards for miles in advance. The owner of the diner stands outside one afternoon, watching the highway in the distance, a grey ribbon of concrete that might as well be a wall. He can see the cars moving past, hundreds of them, thousands, an endless stream of people who will never know his diner exists. He thinks about putting up a sign on the highway, an advertisement, something to lure people off the interstate and onto Main Street. But he knows it would not work. People on the highway do not want to exit, do not want to navigate unfamiliar streets, do not want to gamble on a diner they have never heard of when they know exactly what they will get at the McDonald's at the next rest stop. Inside the diner, the regulars are still there, faithful as ever, but their presence only highlights how empty the rest of the room has become. Booths that used to be full during lunch now sit vacant. The counter, which used to have every stool occupied, now has gaps, empty spaces that feel wrong, that make the whole room seem sadder, lonelier, like a party where half the guests did not show up. The waitress tries to stay positive, tries to keep her energy up, But it is hard when there are fewer orders to take, fewer tables to serve, fewer tips at the end of the day. She finds herself standing idle more often, leaning against the counter, staring out the window at the empty street, wondering where everyone went, wondering if they will ever come back. The cook keeps preparing food the same way he always has, with the same care, the same attention, the same skill. But the tickets come slower now, with longer gaps between them, and sometimes he finds himself just standing there, spatula in hand, waiting for an order that does not come. The griddle, which used to be constantly sizzling, now sits quiet for long stretches. The heat turned down to save propane, the surface cooling, losing the seasoning that comes from constant use. The highway was supposed to be progress, supposed to make things better, faster, more efficient, and maybe it did, for the people driving on it, for the economy, for the country as a whole. But for the diner, for Main Street, for the small towns that used to thrive on the traffic that passed through, the highway is a disaster, a slow-motion catastrophe that no one can stop and no one can fix. The diner survives for now. The regulars keep it alive, keep the lights on, keep the doors open. But everyone knows it is only a matter of time. The highway has spoken, and what it said is that the diner and everything it represents no longer matters to the world rushing past. The regulars keep coming, loyal to the end. The man in the flannel shirt still sits at the far end of the counter, still orders the same breakfast, still leaves the same tip. The woman with the red scarf still arrives at 8, still drinks her coffee black, still folds the newspaper neatly when she finishes. But their numbers are dwindling. Some have moved away, some have passed on. And the younger generation, the ones who should be filling the empty stools, they are not coming. They're eating at home, or grabbing something quick from the drive-through, or skipping breakfast altogether. The diner is still here, but the culture around it, the rituals, the community, the sense of shared daily life, it is fading. The man in the flannel shirt is older now, his movements slower, his hands shakier as he lifts his coffee cup. He still arrives at 6:15 every morning, but some mornings he struggles with the door, his arthritis making it hard to grip the handle. The waitress watches him, ready to help if he needs it, but she never offers, unless he asks, because she knows he's proud, knows he wants to do it himself for as long as he can. He sits on his stool and unfolds his newspaper, and for a little while, everything is the way it has always been. But everyone in the diner knows, without saying it, that there will come a morning when he does not walk through that door, and his stool will sit empty, and no one will ever take his place. The woman with the red scarf is greying now, her hair more silver than dark, her glasses thicker, her steps a little less certain. She still orders the same breakfast, scrambled eggs and wheat toast, no butter, and she still reads while she eats. But the book in her hand is larger now, the print bigger, and sometimes she has to hold it closer to her face to make out the words. She is a creature of habit, and the diner is part of that habit, a fixed point in a life that is slowly narrowing, that is losing its edges, that is preparing quietly for an ending that is not yet here but is no longer unimaginable. The truck driver who used to stop in every morning is gone. He retired, or his route changed, or he just stopped coming, and no one knows why. There is no goodbye in the diner culture, no formal farewell. People just stop showing up, and after a while you stop expecting them, and their absence becomes part of the landscape, a hole where a person used to be. The younger generation does not fill those holes. They do not develop the habit of the diner, do not build it into their routines, do not see the value in sitting on a stool for half an hour when they could be doing something else. They are busier, or at least they think they are, their lives more fragmented, more hurried, less rooted in place. They eat cereal in their cars on the way to work. They grab a breakfast sandwich from a drive-through. They skip breakfast entirely, subsisting on coffee until lunch. The diner to them is not a necessity. It is not even a convenience. It is just a building they pass on their way to somewhere else. The regulars see this. They see the empty stools, the quiet booths, the way the diner has become a place for old people, a museum of a way of life that is already half gone. And it makes them sad, not just for themselves, but for the young people who will never know what they are missing, who will never understand the comfort of a place that knows you, that expects you, that has a cup of coffee ready before you even sit down. The waitress feels it too. She's been serving these people for 20 years, longer, and she knows their stories, their struggles, their small triumphs and quiet tragedies. She knows that the man in the flannel shirt lost his wife 5 years ago and comes to the diner because being home alone is too hard. She knows that the woman with the red scarf is a widow, that her children live far away, that the diner is the only place where someone speaks to her every day. She knows that these people need the diner not just for the food, but for the human connection, for the sense of being part of something, for the reassurance that they are not invisible, not forgotten, not alone. And she knows that when they are gone, the diner will be gone too. Because the diner is not just a building or a business. It is a community, a web of relationships, a set of rituals that give shape and meaning to ordinary days. And when the people who created that community are gone, the diner will become just another empty building on Main Street, a relic of a time when people gathered in public spaces, when meals were shared experiences, when everyone knew your name. The regulars keep coming for as long as they can. They sit in their usual spots, order their usual meals, perform their usual rituals, and the diner keeps serving them, keeps the coffee hot, keeps the eggs coming, keeps the door open, because as long as there are people who need it, it will be here. But everyone knows the clock is ticking. The end is not here yet, but it is coming. And when it comes, it will be quiet, unremarkable, a door closing with barely a sound. One morning, you walk past the diner and notice the lights are off. The neon sign is dark. A handwritten note is taped to the glass door, the ink slightly smudged, the words simple and final. Closed. Thank you for your patronage. You press your face to the glass, peering inside, and the diner looks frozen. The stools still lined up along the counter, the pie case still standing near the register, the jukebox still glowing faintly in the corner. But there is no one inside, no waitress, no cook, no customers, just silence and dust and the ghost of something that used to matter. The note on the door is written on a piece of notebook paper, torn from a spiral-bound pad, the ragged edge still visible along one side. The handwriting is shaky, older, the handwriting of someone who does not write much anymore, whose hands are not as steady as they used to be. The words are brief because there is nothing more to say. Closed. After 40 years, after hundreds of thousands of meals, after countless conversations and refills and slices of pie, it all comes down to one word. Closed. You try the door anyway, even though you know it is locked, even though the note makes it clear there is no point. The handle does not budge. You cup your hands around your face and peer through the glass, your breath fogging the window, and you can see everything inside, preserved like a museum exhibit. The counter still gleaming, the stool still in a neat row, the napkin dispenser still standing at attention. The booths, their vinyl cracked but intact. The tables wiped clean, the salt and pepper shakers still paired together like they have been for decades. The pie case is empty now, its shelves bare, but the light inside is still on, casting a faint yellow glow that makes the absence of pie feel even sadder. The jukebox is dark, its colourful front dimmed, its carousel of records frozen, mid-rotation. On the counter, someone has left a coffee cup, half full, as if the diner closed so suddenly that there was no time to clean up, no time to wash the last dish, no time to say goodbye properly. You step back from the door, and for a moment you just stand there staring at the building, trying to reconcile the vibrant, noisy, living place you remember with this silent, empty shell. It does not seem possible that the diner is gone. It has always been here. It was here before you were born. It should be here after you're gone. And yet it is closed, finished, ended, and there is nothing you can do about it. Other people walk past, most of them without even noticing. The diner has been part of the landscape for so long that it has become invisible, just another building on Main Street, and now that it is closed, it does not even register as a loss. But a few people stop, the regulars, the ones who knew what the diner meant, and they stand beside you, silent, staring through the glass, saying nothing because there is nothing to say. One of them, the man in the flannel shirt, reaches out and touches the door gently, his palm flat against the glass, as if he's trying to feel whether there is still life inside, still warmth, still some spark of the place that mattered so much to him. But the glass is cold, the door is locked, the diner is gone. Someone asks what happened, why it closed, and you realize you do not know. Was it money? Was it health? Was it just exhaustion? The slow accumulation of years and early mornings and the realization that there was no one left to pass it on to? The note does not say, it does not explain, it just apologizes. Thank you for your patronage, as if 4 decades of feeding a community could be summed up in 6 words. You walk away slowly, reluctantly, looking back over your shoulder one more time. The diner sits on Main Street, dark and silent, and you know that it will not reopen. There will be no last-minute reprieve, no new owner who swoops in to save it, no miracle that brings it back to life. The diner is finished, and with it, something else is finished too, a way of life, a set of rituals, a kind of community that cannot be replicated or replaced. The next time you walk past, the note will be gone, blown away or taken down, and the windows will be dusty, and the building will look even more abandoned. Eventually someone will buy it, tear it down, put up something new. And the diner will be forgotten, remembered only by the people who loved it, who needed it, who found a kind of home there. But for now, for this moment, it is still here, still standing, still holding the memory of every meal, every conversation, every morning when the lights came on and the coffee started brewing, and the world felt like it made sense. The diner is closed, but it is not yet gone. And you stand on the sidewalk, mourning something that most people never even noticed, and you realize that this is what loss feels like: quiet, unremarkable, and absolutely devastating. What we lost was more than a place to eat. We lost a third space, a spot that was neither home nor work, a place where people gathered not because they had to, but because they wanted to. We lost the ritual of the morning coffee, the comfort of the familiar waitress, the strange intimacy of sitting at a counter beside strangers who felt like neighbours. We lost the slowness, the inefficiency, the messy humanity of it all. The diner was never perfect. The coffee was too strong. The booths were cracked. The service was inconsistent. But it was ours. It was real. It was a place where you could sit and breathe and exist without performing. And when it disappeared, it took a little piece of us with it. We lost the idea that eating could be a social act, a communal experience, something more than just fueling your body. The diner was a place where meals were shared, where conversations happened naturally, where you might end up talking to the person next to you about the weather or the news or nothing in particular, just because you were both there, both human, both part of the same moment. In the fast food restaurant, in the drive-thru, in the meal eaten alone in your car or in front of your television, that connection is gone. You eat in isolation, in silence, in a bubble that protects you from other people, but also cuts you off from them. We lost the comfort of consistency, the knowledge that the diner would always be there, that it would always serve the same food, that the waitress would always know your order, that your stool would always be waiting for you. In a world that was changing faster than anyone could keep up with, the diner was an anchor, a fixed point, a place that refused to change. And when it disappeared, that anchor was gone, and we were left drifting, unmoored, in a world that had no patience for slowness, for ritual, for the things that make us human. We lost the regulars, those people who showed up every day, who were part of the diner's fabric, who gave it its character and its soul. They were not celebrities. They were not important in any conventional sense, but they mattered, at least in this small space, in this small corner of the world. They had their stools, their booths, their rituals, and those things gave their lives structure, meaning, purpose. And when the diner closed, they lost that structure, that meaning, and some of them, the lonely ones, the ones who had nowhere else to go, they lost the only place where they felt like they belonged. We lost the waitress, who was more than just a server, who was a confidant, a therapist, a friend, a witness to our daily lives. She knew who was struggling, who was celebrating, who needed an extra cup of coffee and a kind word. She held the diner together, not with rules or systems, but with her presence, her memory, her care. And when she lost her job, when the diner closed and she had to find work somewhere else, we lost not just her labour, but her humanity. The way she made us feel seen, known, valued. We lost the cook, who never said much but spoke through his food, who cooked with skill and pride and a kind of quiet artistry that no one appreciated until it was gone. Every egg he cracked, every burger he flipped, every plate he sent through the window was a small act of care, a small gift to the person who would eat it. And when the diner closed, that care disappeared, replaced by food that was made by machines, by systems, by people who did not know and did not care who was eating it. We lost the jukebox, the pie case, the chrome stools, the cracked vinyl booths, all the physical objects that made the diner what it was. But more than that, we lost what those objects represented. The idea that public spaces could be beautiful in their imperfection, that worn and used and slightly shabby could also be comforting, familiar, beloved. Everything now is designed to be replaced, to be disposable, to be upgraded every few years. Nothing is allowed to age, to accumulate history, to become part of the story of a place. We lost the culture of the diner, the unspoken rules and rituals that governed how people behaved, how they interacted, how they treated each other. You did not need to be told how to act in a diner. You just knew. You knew to leave room at the counter for the next person. You knew not to linger too long during the lunch rush. You knew to say thank you to the waitress, to tip fairly, to treat the space with respect. And when the diner disappeared, that culture disappeared with it, replaced by a world where there are no rules, no rituals, no shared understanding of how to be in public. What we lost in the end was a way of being together, a model for how strangers could share space, could coexist, could create something that felt like community without ever having to organise it or name it or make it official. The diner just was, and because it was, we were better, kinder, more connected than we are now. And we did not realise what we had until it was gone, until the doors closed and the lights went out, and we were left standing on the sidewalk staring through the glass at something we loved but could not save. Some diners tried to fight back, tried to adapt, tried to become something they were not. They added salad bars with sneeze guards and tongs. They updated their menus with trendy items, quiche and croissants, and things that did not belong on a diner griddle. They renovated, tearing out the old booths and replacing them with new ones that had no character, no history, no cracks in the vinyl that told stories. They installed modern lighting, bright and harsh, that made everything look too clean, too sterile, too much like the chains they were trying to compete with. But it did not work. The regulars felt betrayed, alienated by the changes, and the new customers they were trying to attract never came. Because if people wanted modern and trendy, they would go to the chains. The diner's strength had always been its refusal to change, its stubborn insistence on being exactly what it was. And when it tried to be something else, it lost the only thing that made it special. The salad bar appeared one Tuesday morning, wheeled in on a chrome cart, its plastic dome already fogging with condensation. It sat near the entrance, impossible to ignore, stocked with iceberg lettuce, pale tomato wedges, shredded carrots, and croutons that looked like they had been cut from industrial foam. A sign above it proclaimed fresh and healthy options in letters that were trying too hard. The regulars stared at it with suspicion, with confusion, with something close to betrayal. This was not what they came here for. This was not what the diner was supposed to be. The waitress tried to sell it, tried to suggest it to customers who had been ordering the same breakfast for 20 years. "Would you like to try our salad bar today?" she would ask, her voice lacking conviction, and they would look at her like she'd suggested they eat the napkins. "No thank you," they would say, politely but firmly, and order their eggs and bacon and toast, same as always, trying to pretend the salad bar did not exist, trying to hold on to the diner they remembered. The menu changed too, expanded, bloated with items that did not fit, that required ingredients the cook did not know how to work with, that took up space on the griddle that used to be reserved for eggs and hash browns and burgers, quiche Lorraine, croissant sandwiches, pasta primavera. The cook stared at the new menu with barely concealed contempt. These dishes that required techniques he had never learned, ingredients he had never used, a level of fussiness that went against everything he believed about cooking. He tried, because he was a professional, because it was his job, but his heart was not in it, and you could tell by looking at the food, which was competent but joyless, executed but not loved. The renovation was the final insult. They closed for 2 weeks, and when they reopened, everything was different. The old booths were gone, replaced by new ones in a bland beige that matched nothing and offended no one. The counter was the same, but the stools were different, lower, less comfortable, with backs that were supposed to be ergonomic but just felt wrong. The pie case was gone entirely, replaced by a refrigerated display with individually wrapped desserts in plastic, cheesecake and tiramisu and things that had no place in a diner. The jukebox was unplugged, shoved into a corner, covered with a tarp like something shameful. The lighting was the worst part. The old fluorescent tubes, with their soft, forgiving glow, were replaced by bright LED panels that made everything look harsh, clinical, exposed. Every crack in the counter was visible now, every stain on the floor, every tired line on every tired face. The diner had always been a place where imperfection was acceptable, where worn and shabby were part of the charm. But under these new lights, imperfection just looked like failure. The regulars came back because they were loyal, because they wanted to support the place they loved. But they were uncomfortable, off balance, like guests in their own home. The man in the flannel shirt sat at the counter, but his usual stool was gone, replaced by one that was 2 inches too low, and he could not get comfortable, could not settle into his newspaper the way he used to. The woman with the red scarf ordered her usual breakfast, but it came on a different plate, square instead of round, white instead of blue, and it felt wrong, like eating off someone else's dishes. And the food tasted different, not worse exactly, but different, less familiar, less comforting. The eggs were the same eggs, cooked the same way, but something was missing, some ineffable quality that had made them taste like home, Maybe it was the new plates. Maybe it was the new lights. Maybe it was just the knowledge that the diner was trying to be something it was not, and that desperation, that self-betrayal, had seeped into the food itself. The new customers never came. The diner had spent money it did not have, had changed everything it was, had abandoned its identity in a desperate attempt to compete, and it had gained nothing. The people who wanted salad bars and quiche and modern lighting, they were already eating at the chains, at the new restaurants in the shopping centre, at places that were designed from the ground up to be trendy and fast and convenient. They did not want a diner that was pretending to be something else. And the people who loved the diner for what it was, they felt abandoned, betrayed, like they had lost a friend who had decided they were not good enough anymore. Within 6 months, the salad bar was gone, the sneeze guard collecting dust in the back room. The menu shrank back to something closer to the original, though some of the new items lingered, ghosts of the failed experiment. But the damage was done. The regulars had been reminded that nothing lasts forever, that even the diner, stubborn and unchanging, was vulnerable, mortal, capable of making mistakes, and that knowledge, once learned, could not be unlearned. The diner had tried to save itself by becoming something else, and in the process it had lost the only thing that could have saved it, itself. Years later, long after the diner has closed, long after the building has been torn down or converted into something else, you will walk past a restaurant, any restaurant, and catch a whiff of something, bacon frying, coffee brewing, toast burning slightly, and you will be transported back. Suddenly you're sitting at the counter again, the vinyl stool squeaking beneath you, the waitress pouring your coffee without asking, the cook flipping eggs behind the pass-through window. The smell brings it all back with a vividness that is almost painful, because you realise how much you have lost, how much you miss it, how much you took it for granted when it was still there. Smells have a way of holding memory that nothing else can match, and the smell of the diner, that impossible combination of grease and coffee and life, will stay with you forever. A ghost that visits you in unexpected moments, reminding you of a place that no longer exists except in your mind. You're walking through a grocery store, pushing a cart through the breakfast aisle when it happens. Someone nearby has opened a package of bacon, and the smell, raw and slightly smoky, drifts toward you. It is not even cooked yet, just the promise of bacon, the potential of it, but that is enough. Your mind lurches backward 30 years, 40, and suddenly you're 12 years old, sitting in the corner booth of the diner after school, splitting an order of fries with your friends, the air thick with the smell of the griddle working overtime during the dinner. Rush. The memory's so vivid, so complete, that for a moment you forget where you are. You can feel the vinyl booth beneath your legs, cool and slightly sticky. You can hear the jukebox playing something by the Everly Brothers, the sound crackling slightly through the old speakers. You can see the waitress, her name tag slightly crooked, her hair sprayed into place, her smile tired but genuine. And then someone walks past your cart and the spell is broken, and you're back in the grocery store, fluorescent lights humming overhead, holding a package of something you do not remember picking up. It keeps happening. These small ambushes of memory, triggered by smells that most people would not even notice. You're walking past a coffee shop, and the smell of burnt coffee, that acrid, slightly bitter smell of a pot that has been sitting on the burner too long, hits you like a wave. And suddenly you're at the diner counter at 6 a.m, watching the cook crack eggs with one hand, the waitress refilling your cup before it is even empty, the world outside still dark, the world inside warm and bright and alive. You're at a diner, a new one, a retro-themed place that is trying very hard to recreate the aesthetic of the diners you remember. The stools are chrome, the counter is formica, the jukebox in the corner is playing 50s music. But it is not right. It is too clean, Too perfect, too self-conscious. The smells are wrong too. Everything is cooked on a flat-top grill that is scrubbed clean after every shift, that has no seasoning, no history, no accumulated memory of a million meals cooked before. The coffee is fresh, brewed in small batches, and it tastes fine, good even, but it does not taste like the diner. It does not have that burnt, bitter, been-sitting, too long quality that you used to complain about, but now would give anything to taste again. You realise that what you're missing is not just the smell, but the context, the life that created the smell. The diner smelled the way it did because it was always cooking, always busy, always full of people eating and talking and living. The grease in the air was not a design choice. It was a byproduct of feeding hundreds of people a day, every day, for decades. The burnt coffee was not intentional. It was what happened when the waitress was too busy to brew a fresh pot, when the lunch rush was so intense that things got forgotten, overlooked, burnt. The smell was a record of the diner's life, and without that life, without that history, the smell cannot be replicated. You try to explain this to someone once, someone who never knew the diner, who never sat at the counter or ordered the blue plate special or knew the waitress's name. You try to describe the smell, the way it made you feel, the way it could transport you back to a time and place that no longer exists. But they do not understand. They nod politely, but you can see in their eyes that they think you're being nostalgic, sentimental, romanticizing something that probably was not as good as you remember. And maybe they are right. Maybe the diner was not as perfect as you remember. Maybe the coffee really was too bitter, the booths really were too cracked, the service really was too slow. But it does not matter. Because the smell, that ghost that visits you in grocery stores and coffee shops and restaurants that are trying too hard, that smell tells you something different. It tells you that the diner was real, that it mattered, that it was a place where life happened, where people gathered, where you belonged. And now it is gone, and all you have left is the memory of the smell and the knowledge that you will never smell anything quite like it again. The diner is closed. The building is gone. The people who work there have moved on or passed away. But the smell remains, locked in your memory, waiting to ambush you when you least expect it, to remind you of what you lost, of what we all lost when the diners closed and the culture around them disappeared. You breathe in, trying to hold on to the memory a little longer, trying to capture that smell one more time. But it is already fading, already slipping away, and you are left standing in a grocery store holding a package of bacon, feeling foolish and sad and impossibly old. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blankets, as the world outside quiets and the day finally loosens its grip, let yourself sit for just a moment with what we have walked through together. The chrome counters and the vinyl booths, the waitress who knew your name and the cook who never looked up from the griddle, the coffee that never stopped pouring and the pie case that held everything, the regulars who came every day and the strangers who sat beside them and somehow, without planning it, without naming it, became part of something larger than themselves. The people who lived this era did not think they were living through something special. They were just getting breakfast, just stopping for coffee, just sitting at a counter because it was Tuesday, and that is what you did on Tuesdays. They did not know they were creating a culture, building a community, holding on to something that would one day vanish and leave behind only ghosts and memories and a longing that their children would struggle to explain. But they were doing something important, even if they did not know it. They were showing up. They were being present. They were sitting beside strangers and turning them into neighbours, one cup of coffee at a time. And maybe, just maybe, there is something we can carry forward from that. Some small piece of their wisdom. Maybe we can slow down, just a little. Maybe we can choose the longer line, the slower service, the place where someone might remember our name. Maybe we can create our own rituals, our own third spaces, our own moments of connection in a world that seems designed to keep us apart. History is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just a counter and a stool, and someone who pours your coffee without asking, and that is enough. That has always been enough. So rest now. Let the diner fade gently into memory, where it belongs, where it is safe, and know that somewhere, in the quiet hours of the morning, someone is still making coffee, still cracking eggs, still holding the door open for a stranger. The diner may be gone, but the spirit of it, the care, the ritual, the simple human kindness that lives on as long as we remember. Good night, and may your dreams be warm